Pull this chair.
Yeah. Kunal is going to join us. He works on my team.
Okay.
How are things going so far?
Easy. Initial days are trying to take all the inputs from different stakeholders and getting the requirements clarity.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's tough. There's a lot. Our systems are very, more than most, complex.
Yeah. So we can start. Are we waiting for Kunal?
No, yeah, we can start. He'll be over in a second.
Okay. So 397, I was going through the Jira things and I was going through various different pages where the informations are available and what we discussed last time and most of this part. But I was just looking at Jira. I found only one story, that is create algorithms to identify work request to review exceptions. So I wanted, like, if we are planning to start this project in the first sprint.
So that's what I had said before is that this is something that we're still trying to get the tool that we're using to visualize the stuff finished so we can understand what are the requirements that you need to do this work.
Okay.
So we've done a pretty good job and we understand a good portion of it, but I was actually even working on that some today, trying to come up with all the different scenarios that we have to look for. I have to be able to look at the data in a way that allows me to see that, right? I can't, it's just hard. Like a perfect example is I'm looking at, here's our tool, and I'm going through here and I suspect that some of these things that are flagged as O&M, I think they're wrong. I have to be able to give you logic so you can go in there and say, oh, that's wrong. So a perfect example would be this unit here, it's going to O&M. I know it's going to O&M. It's $6,000 in O&M on a $17,000 job. So it's 35% of the job's O&M is this one unit. There's an asset down here. This unit really should be related to this asset, which is DuckDB, which is a different usage code. It's a different unit.
Okay.
So what, in this case, the example for this particular case would be when I have a unit that starts with OP and I can give, I've got it in basically OP percent TC. So if it has those two things in it, it's an op unit. So those operational units, if it has one of those and it's going to O&M, and this one is, and there's an asset on the job, and there is, this unit should align with this asset, which means you have to be able to know this unit ends in ConOH, the right unit ends in DuckDB.
DuckDB, yeah.
So you have to be able to identify the scenario. Then once you've identified the scenario, as a secondary, you have to then say, I've identified this scenario, this is what has to happen. I've got a lot of this is what has to happen. I have to be able to give you all the scenarios. So I have some, and there's things that we're doing manually that I can easily transform that into some requirements. But the only way I'm able to do this is to go job by job and look through these things. I've actually got an extract that I've been working on, going through and random jobs that have problems. Like, so this particular, there's one here. Just to kind of give you an example, this is the human piece that I'm trying to get automated, right? So So here's a job that's 100% capital. I mean O&M. It's hard for me to be able to tell you what needs to be fixed. This doesn't need. There's nothing that you can do to change a unit that exists on the job to get fixed. This is a job that has to go back to design. It needs to be sent back to design because design needs to understand that there's no assets on this job. They spent $62,000 and they didn't put a single asset on the job. So we really need to evaluate when we do work, whenever we're not putting an asset in, we should ask ourselves, are there assets that need to be replaced? They've done a lot of activities that are around, for instance, poles and conductor, things that they've done, different arms and brackets, and filled these woodpecker holes and straightened out a pole that was leaning, and a bunch of stuff that they've done. But nowhere on here did they replace a pole. And the question is more on the design side, to go back to designers to say, hey, why didn't you replace a pole in this job? There's got to be a pole. If you're fixing a bunch of woodpecker holes on a particular feeder, there's got to be one of those poles that's bad enough to replace it. So this would be an example where you wouldn't actually do that, but you want to flag the job to send it back to the designer to say, hey, take a look at this. So this is where Kunal and I are trying to work through what are all the scenarios that we want to flag for correction, and what are all the scenarios we want to just flag for review.
Okay.
Hold on one
Yeah,
second.
sure.
Hey, Christine.
Hey, how are you?
Samir.
Kunal, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Grab a chair for you.
Yeah, I'll go with my desk.
Yeah. Yep. We were tired on the removal the removal of the original job that installs in the home entire vehicle. Right.
Thanks. Accelerate.
Accelerate, yeah.
So we do
Extension.
charge
Is that true?
on there for the removal of the pole. The pole does the pole removal cost is included on the pole. A lot of that is
I just wanted to be in this year.
covered with
Oh, okay.
undressing the pole,
Okay.
taking the things off the pole, cutting it off, clearing it off at the joint use. There is a pulling cost that charges to the removal separately on a pole pulling blanket, which goes to 100% capital. And on that all that does is basically contributes removal cost to the pole removal. There's a blanket that does it, so it all kind of rolls up. It doesn't fall to the specific asset. So there's two portions of that removal. There's we remove it as far as we can get it based on the limitations we have. If there's joint use and things like that, then we have to handle the pole differently than if there isn't any joint use, where we would actually physically pull the pole out of the ground and restore the area, whether it's put dirt in or sod or concrete or whatever. Yep. Yep. Right. And it costs us more money in the case that we have joint use, because we have to send a second crew out to the field to pull that pole. No. Yeah. Okay. All right. So you got them straightened out. If they need anything, they can call me. Okay. No problem. Yep. Yep. No, you're good. All right. Sorry about that. I had the legals asking questions about polls.
I was gonna having to go twice out there.
Well,
Like
whether or
they
not
don't
we're
wanna-
retiring the pole, when we're retiring it, and then telling them that we're retiring it when we do the removal job, even though the pole
even
job
though the
comes
mobile
after.
jobs get out.
So they're freaking out. So I guess they got a meeting with Eric tomorrow. So I've been
Okay.
dealing with her for 20 minutes. So
Oh, okay.
I had to answer that. So anyway, I think that and I've since our last meeting, I've been trying to work on that, is try to figure out all the requirements of the things that need to happen. But I don't think the data lake's ready for it, and I don't think that we have all the requirements written up for this to do it on the first sprint. That's my opinion. It needs to be done, but the data lake is really the limit. We can't test the data lake right now, so we move the stuff to data lake on our report. This is actually not hitting the data lake. This is hitting the WMS.
Okay.
This is hitting actually the data warehouse, is where this hits right now. Until they get it in the data lake, I don't think we can do any of this because we want to write this off the data lake, not off the warehouse. So they're still. I mean, they as of yesterday, they were still trying to. They're having all kinds of problems refreshing data, and I don't get involved in all the details, but they told us that we couldn't test.
Yeah.
Is kind of the answer. So as soon as we get it in the data lake and we can test and we can actually get it so that the production version that I'm using is to the data lake and not to the data warehouse,
Data warehouse, yeah.
I don't think we can do this. We could maybe start, but I don't think there's nothing we're going to have that's I think on our side it's going to be writing all the requirements up. Here's all the things to change out. Here's the logic to apply to change all that stuff out. We've been working on that. That's stuff that we started working on after our last meeting. But as far as you being able to write anything against that or pulling data out of the data warehouse, it's not there.
Okay.
So I think you're right that it's not something that's going to go the first sprint for sure.
Okay.
So
So what should be the expectation on completion of this thing going from warehouse to data lakes?
well,
Is there some timeline, or you guys have something
6
on
months
that?
ago, it should have been done. It's been it's probably been 6 or 8 months since we went out and did the training when we saw you out there. So it's been going on for a year. And
So,
and there's always reasons why, and I like I said, all I hear is it's not happening. I don't really know all the details of the reasons why. I know there was some software issues, there was some syncing issues, building the data lake and segment of the environment was some of the stuff they had to do, but it seems like right now the issue is the refresh of the data from what I've
It's
heard.
too hard.
it looks like project within itself.
Yes. Oh, it definitely is. It
Yeah.
is. It was a separate idea that was there to move it to Data Lake, knowing we had these ideas coming along, but the Data Lake stuff should have been done a minimum of 6 months ago. It should have been finished, and it's not. So that's pushing everything else back, and we're kind of sitting there waiting for the Data Lake. We waited for 3 months while they tried to determine which software they were going to use to sync the data between the warehouse and the lake. Nothing I can do. I'm just sitting there waiting. So now they've got it, but they're having some issues with it. So I would say it seems like it's going to be soon from what
Yeah.
they're talking about, but
Should be any day. That's what they're saying.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's saying.
but that's just to get the data in there and us to
Yeah.
use it. We still have to load test it to make sure when it goes into a production environment that it's not going to have
Errors.
issues there, because the data lake is just all that's going to allow us to do is our test environment is now going to be ported to production data to test the logic of the report. So we have production data, a test report that's on that production data, so we can at least start. If I make a correction today to an inventory at 12 o'clock, at 12:05, does it reflect on the report, or is it still wrong? Those are the things we have to be. That's some of the stuff that we have to do. Part of going to the lake is that the lake is supposed to be sub-minute refreshes. So if I do something at 12 o'clock. At 12:01, it should already reflect in the report.
Yeah.
I'm skeptical that that's gonna, from what it sounds like,
Yeah.
I'm skeptical that they're gonna be able to do that. They say they are. I haven't seen it yet. Because all they were doing now is they just had a static feed of data to it one time, and they've had problems loading that stuff. I think the logic that the updater does is it looks at the records that changed and not try to refresh the whole database. So it's kind of like a change detection, and that's what it does every minute, and it keeps looking for those changes. And when a change comes in, then it trues it up. Again, I haven't seen it do it. I've not seen any
Yeah.
refreshes at all.
So I would like to add up something here, Corey, that I know there are issues from, as we discussed, from data warehouse to data lake and some other things, other issues going on. So at least from the entire 397 perspective, you must be having a rough ideas like I want these things to get done. Once this is done, data warehouse and data lakes issues are resolved, I will be ready with this thing. So we can.
So considering how far behind we are, the hope is it's much sooner than what it's probably going to really be. I think we would rather have had it already done by now and been able to be testing your logic and be able to move forward and be done with it. It's not there. I don't think it's fair to say to you that I need it
Okay.
next month,
Yeah.
because I don't think it's that easy. I think there's going to be a good bit of work.
Yeah, but my point was, why not we assume, say for example, everything is going fine between data warehouse and data lake,
Okay.
and we are ready with everything there, and 397 has to be done now. So keeping that mindset, we start building our product backlog
Right.
and put everything ready and keep our like tasking part and breaking stuffs.
Okay.
We can utilize that time for getting our backlog ready.
Okay.
So when those things resolve, we have ready part to just hit on,
Okay. Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
that's fine.
So we're ready when it comes
Because
down.
I definitely know there's a piece on us that has to be done. It's just been a challenge for us to get the time to do it because we're dealing with the Gulf stuff
Exactly.
that's pulling us in that direction too.
Yep,
So
yep.
I've got a good idea for the first round. I've got a lookup table that I can show you for, I take a file. I'll show you a file that I use. No, this isn't gonna work. This'll work. So I have a file that I use that I'm doing manually what we want to do automatically. So I pull in all these jobs, this particular group of jobs. I've got a query that is pretty basic. I mean, it's not too detailed. It's just pulling in from two tables, brings it in. Here's a group of job types that I'm looking for. This is the classification of O&M, and this is just two statuses. So I'm constrained with how much data I can pull out. Just from a SQL standpoint, I can only pull out so much data, and it starts to cause problems. And then I'm looking for these CUs. What all these CUs I have listed are, they're basically, it's the way I have to do it to do the lookup because of the way that it works. But it's these CUs with these actions, and in the case that I have this AMI transceiver that's being installed, instead of putting an AMI transceiver CU on as install, I need to put this AMI transceiver -hard for install.
Okay.
It's a simple lookup. It's just go in and fix on these jobs. That's as simple as it is. It's really pretty straightforward. It's just swap it out. The only things that are tough are like this AMI transceiver that's being transferred. In this case, I need to take this unit out from being transferred and put one in that's install and scrap. So there's actually two units that goes in. One is install, one is scrap. So I have to be able to, do those replacements. There's a whole list of CUs
And some,
specifically to these 5 job types
yeah.
that are going through, and this is what I'm looping through to fix. So what I ultimately do is I create a file. And this is what we were going to have robotics do. You know, the RPA team do.
Yeah.
They were going to go in and they have to go in and find these units on these jobs and delete all these because these say delete. Then what I had to do is I have to come up with and figure out if I'm going to delete those, what's the replacement. So using that lookup table, I go in and I update this file and I say, here's the unit to replace it with, here's the new action, oh, it's install and scrap, so now I have to add another line, so I have to go in and manually add a second instance of that CU, one install, one scrap, because we don't have we can't put two actions on the same CU.
Thing, yeah.
So I have to go in and do that. Then what I do is, because now I've created things that sometimes duplicate, because I'm looking at a point level, now what I can do is I can roll all this up. So instead of having to look point location by point location, I'm just going to look at this job and say, hey, on this particular job, how many times do I have, for instance, this fuse switch guard, I think it is. How many do I have it? Well, I've got it here, here, here. There's a whole bunch of different instances of it. Instead of having inventory at individual points, the way I'm doing it is I'm saying, no, let's go ahead and tell me how many total are on that job. And I'm just going to end up putting it back at one point. So instead of putting one unit at, say, 5 points, I'm going to put 5 units at one point. So that's just the methodology we went that makes it the easiest to update it. With what we're talking, the solution that we kind of talked about here, what you have to do is you actually have to do the replacement of the CU as it is. So to me, that makes it easier, right? Because if I know that, for instance, you know, this first one, if I know every time I see a fuse switch GRD that's transferred, I know I need to put in a fuse switch dash TR, or fuse switch dash ground dash hard, and I need to put it as install and scrap. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, update this row, make this the new unit, and make it the new action with install, and then add another unit at that same spot. It's easy to do if you have the whole inventory. You can just kind of find and replace. With having to go in and actually physically delete it out of the job and then having to add it back into the job, it's time consuming because of the system processing things. What we're going to do is we're going to actually just say, hey, just go in and replace this. Take this out and replace it, because now I've got the inventory of every unit that's on that job. I find this instance, and instead of it being there, I'm going to take it out and I'm going to put the new one in. So I think it makes it easier from an automation standpoint, because you're getting the whole thing and you're replacing it at the location, one for one, just like that. You don't need to keep this. You don't have to keep this unit or do an action to delete it. By replacing it in a file and sending it back through the design interface, it doesn't know that it was even there before. You fixed it before it goes into that interface to feed into WMS. So I have to come up with all the logic. The logic is a slight bit different to fit this than it is to do the way that I'm doing it, because I'm having to go through. So I pivot it, then I determine what's got to be added. Okay, I got to go in and do the install and scrap thing and put the duplicates in. Then I pivot it one more time. Then I actually create an update file, and the update file, for instance, in this case, it shows you on let's pick up the job. So on this job, I have to go to point 123, 127, and 128 and delete this light bracket. But then I have to go back in and I have to add a light bracket for 3 quantity for install and 3 quantity for scrap at a separate point. There's jobs that have 50. So you're going to have to just basically do a find and replace on that file. You can do a find and replace and fixes it like that, where I have to actually identify where it's at to tell robotics to go in to replace it. So similar requirements, but how it's used or how it will be used in this idea is different. So that's the part that I have to try to be able to. I can definitely do this. This is pretty easy. This lookup's pretty simple. But there's other things. This is just one group of jobs that we have to correct. But we consistently have things that have to be corrected on jobs, and we have things that we know designers have done wrong. So we have to document out all of the things a designer can do wrong, and document it in a way that allows you to be able to use coding to automate the identification and testing.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be easy because there's a lot of stuff I have to write up for you.
Dependencies.
So I agree that there's stuff that we can do and we can get there, but I think before you can do any coding at all, I have to have the scenarios written up
Right.
for you.
Yeah.
So we were literally working on this today. So I've been trying to stay up to speed on it, but it's not simple for us. Once we get it figured out, once we figure out all the error, what are the error modes? What's caused the error? That's the hardest part. Once we know what's caused the error, to figure out and to tell you how to fix it is easy.
Right.
I mean, would you agree with me to that?
Yeah, no, I think especially since we're just starting on this now, like, I think the hardest part would be like the difference between like the transfer versus like just install scrap versus a lot of
Right.
jobs.
Right. And then there's a lot of things like that, the op units.
Yeah.
Trying to write that logic for the op units to say, hey, if I have an op unit that's going to O&M, there's an asset on the job, I need to know what the asset is, know what the action of the asset is, and then
And like
I can say, well, if I have this action and this asset that's on the job, then this is the unit
is
to
the
use
unit
to
to
replace
use.
this one. Well, there's 150 of those units. There's different flavors of those units. So, the example I give is
that one job that had 10 different types of operational units.
so. The example I give is. Let's just say.
POH dash
TC.
TC, yeah,
Yeah.
TC.
Well, let's do this. Here's the list of all the units that exist that are out there. Now you can see if I do. Let's just do what, like 602?
Yeah.
Is that one? This is one unit. Every one of these is exactly 100% the same, except for it has a different usage code.
Okay.
So, in this example, if I had one of these and it was going to O&M, but I had an asset on the job, let's say that asset was ConOH. If it's ConOH, then you need to inventory this unit instead of the unit that's up here. So there's replacement logic. So I think initially it's flag it, this is likely wrong. If it's wrong, how do I resolve it? I resolve it by knowing this information, and once I know that, then the last step is actually replacing it. So I think this solution that we kind of came up with is a better solution than the robotics for sure, but I think this makes what you need from us a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
So there's huge dependencies on us. So we're just going to have to get it to you as quick as we can. It's probably going to be, realistically, it's going to be 3-4 weeks until we can get it to you.
Okay.
That would be would you agree?
Yeah.
We'd probably get at least the majority of it, right?
Can we do
And-
like portions?
And that's what I was going to say. What we can probably do is we can probably get the main stuff first, so you can start working on that,
Absolutely.
and then we can start
Adding
building
more
on
later.
that and adding to it. As long as the agreement is that we know we're going to have to add to it as we go, or if it's better for you to have everything and code off of everything. I don't know.
We can. Our strategy should be MVP, like minimum viable products. We can start creating. So we start seeing the value in that. So we get more encouraged to do more about the product
So-
improvement.
So here's what Kunal and I were looking at today. So this is just one. This is, I'm going to say, one piece of logic. So all I did was, the first piece of logic is I said, if I have these units, tell me what's here that's going to O&M. Now this doesn't mean that all of these are going to capitalize, but to give you an idea of what the total cost is, $3.2 million of O&M. One thing. Now, all 3.2 million isn't going to go to capital. That's not going to
That's not
happen.
good.
If we got a third of that,
Mm-hmm.
that's $1 million of O&M that moves to capital. Big win. That's one logic string, one process. That's it, and that's only on that one thing. There's other stuff that's very similar to this that they do wrong too. So, I think we can show value quick. I don't think there's any concern that we can give you. We can give you probably the top 5 most basic logic things in a week,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
so,
then
so we have 5 stories. We can just start
Yes.
writing up, and we can start tasking it out, and
yes,
have some meetings with dev team. And my dev team is like, we're just waiting for the SLEED ID. All the paperwork is done,
Okay.
and so it's probably saying tomorrow they will have it, and Monday, Tuesday they'll have
Okay.
the access to Citrix thing.
So I'm off tomorrow, but we'll start next week
Yeah.
writing that up, and
Yeah.
we'll try to get you 5 by the end of next week. How about that? Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So this one's not bad. Some of the other ones are going to be a little bit tougher. So, I think that the main 2 are going to be the hardening
Mm-hmm.
stuff, the op units,
Yep.
and then we just have to figure out what the other 3 that are going to add the most value.
Right,
Probably
yeah.
got to pull some data to look at that
Okay.
to make sure. I think there's things that add value. I want to make sure whatever we do,
Yeah.
if we are going with this MVP top 5, I want to make sure it's the top $5
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So, and I think a piece of this is probably going to be some sort of notification to the designer.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't think there's
Get
some things we're
feedback.
going to be able to fix. Like you
Yeah.
have to know the design, but we should still flag the design to say
This is what
this
we need to fix.
is an
Yeah.
outlier.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my thought. We need to talk through that some more.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you start looking at these numbers, I mean, this is just lines of the inventory. 399, 464, 391. I mean, the money adds up quick.
Yeah.
You don't have to fix many of them to make a big impact.
Yeah.
And what we've found is the jobs that have these units, these particular units on it, have numerous other errors
Okay.
as well.
Yeah.
So this is just leading us to the jobs that have errors. We're only going to be fixing one error. We need to figure out how to fix more of those errors. And that's,
Monthly, annually, multiply in years, 5, 10 years, like so much of money.
oh, it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, and that's some of it is, what we've found is from our analysis is we've actually found, so we do auto inventory. The same interface that we're going to use for this is our auto inventory interface, and it basically you create you create inventory in Design Manager, and then you send that inventory over. What we found from our analysis is we found that the logic for the auto inventory had things mapped wrong. They were putting the wrong things on the job automatically. The designer wasn't doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
They were getting the wrong thing. So we fixed a good portion of those. We've gone through and fixed a lot of stuff. We actually talked about some today. I think that we probably are going to have some more auto inventory stuff that we'll identify as we start seeing data we can start figuring out where did it start from.
Yeah.
If it was auto inventory, we need to fix auto inventory. If it's designer putting it on, then I think we need to, address that as well.
Yeah.
So, I think what we need to do is we need to break down the job from inventory error, just bad design, right? Because we know we have bad design. So how do we flag a bad design? What is the criteria for that? And then the other thing is I think we're going to have stuff from estimate to as built. So we're going to have estimates that they're going to do wrong, and if they do the estimate wrong, they're probably going to do the as built wrong too.
Yeah.
They could do the estimate right and do the as built wrong, or the other way around. So we need to understand that too, as to where I think our biggest bang is going to be as built today, because that's the stuff that's getting ready to close. So if we fix it before it closes, then we realize the savings.
Yeah.
But I think there's value in also applying it to the estimate and using that as the feedback loop to the designers to say,
yeah.
hey, we had to make corrections to your job because you didn't design it right.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the basic groupings we need to look at and see where they're at. So I'll get you the top 5 by next week.
Next week, yes. So from my perspective personally, from my team's perspective, as the team is getting started next week, and I've been here since now this is my second week, and few meetings for other projects, and this is the second one on 397. So from project management and agile and delivering, I have more clarity, but from technical, I will need lots of help here.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
And Kunal, I will need your
Yeah.
email ID
Yeah.
and full
Yeah,
name.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'll definitely send that.
I have Corey's thing in my Skype. I have added up everyone
Yeah,
whom I
you
know.
have it,
Right.
yeah.
So to kind of give some background on Kunal, he came to us recently from engineering.
Okay.
So he was a designer in the field, out there dealing with all this stuff that the designers are dealing with. So the reason why we brought him in is we've had another person previously that he's replaced, but we found that trying to understand some of this stuff, it's really helpful to have a designer to be able to give us some feedback on, hey, I see stuff that looks like a pain to me, but is that really a pain?
Absolutely.
And that's where he comes in to be able to say, yes, it is a problem, it is something we need to address. Or maybe there's something I don't see at all, and he can say to me, hey, Corey, when we do these designs, this is something that happens every time, and I have to click this button. Cause I'm a big button click guy. I can't stand button clicks. If you don't have to do it, I don't want to do it. So if he tells me, hey, I got to click this button every single time on this job type, and it doesn't do anything, why are we doing it?
Yeah.
Do we really need it? If there's no intelligence to clicking that button or no processing that has to take place and you're just clicking it, does it need to be there? So we've done a lot of that stuff with the engineers. Mike, who was here before Kunal, and myself have worked to try to figure out where are the pains in the system. So some of the things that you're going to see as you work through ideas that you probably haven't even seen yet.
Yeah.
The ideas you haven't seen yet, you're going to see some of those where it's optimization. It's improving kind of the user experience throughout the life of a job.
Yeah.
So that's the stuff that we get into a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. I'm glad to finally be getting to work on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've seen huge, just in the tool alone, we've seen huge savings to the business.
Yeah.
Just from them being able to see the data right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we think. Okay, we see the data now. Do we really even need to show it to them? Let's just fix it.
Yeah.
We know what's wrong. Let's fix it. But if you just fix it on the back end and you don't give a feedback loop to the front end, it's actually creating it. You're not getting any better.
Yeah.
So that's where we have to kind of be two-headed monster, where we need to fix but feedback so that we don't have to fix the next time. Because ultimately the goal would be, if they do a better job of designing and they get everything under design, then our tool doesn't have to do anything, right? It's done.
Yeah.
So, but realistically, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
too many choices. They make too many mistakes as it is. Even the good ones make mistakes.
Yeah.
So,
Talking about me.
Of course, that's why you're here, right? We only bring the good ones over.
All right, Corey and Kunal. Call back too.
Okay.
So
You do as well.
All right, sounds good.
yeah, we'll catch up next week.
Excellent. I'll have you something by Friday.
Sure.
If you don't hear from me later on, because I'll probably send you something in the middle of the week to kind of give you an update.
Yeah.
If you don't hear from me, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email.
Yeah, sure.
Okay?
So I'll say hi to Corey and what's your last?
Abhichitani, ABI. I can give you one of my
Okay.
cards.
Yeah, sure.
That
Please,
yeah.
that'd be fine.
Yeah.
Thanks, Corey.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And this will just mind it.
Yes.
Hello? Hello? Hi, how are you, Josh? I'm doing good. Was in another meeting, so got a couple of minutes. Sorry for that. Yeah. So Nomi, yeah. Nomi just informed me that she can't be able to attend. She was on some other call, and so I thought we can disconnect and discuss about the thing. So currently you are at which location, George, if you don't mind? Yeah. Okay. So, as discussed earlier in the previous meeting, I spoke to Stephen today, and we had a conversation about his availability and how he can, help as an SMA. And he had earlier. Give me a sec. There is some noise. So yeah, he said that he will not be available because his current situation is such where he will be getting busy starting next week, and this whole week he's on PTO. So next week he has some other things lined up and has some projects in pipeline. So I think from Steven's point of view, he will not be available. From Naomi's point of view, she will not be available, but as discussed earlier, I had sent you the looking at your calendar. So the timings between 11 and 12 are convenient for you, and couple of days between 2 and 3 something. So the first thing first, I will be doing on Monday with Leslie. Will be discussing the timings of our SMA, that is you, and trying to get scheduled things within that timing. So Monday morning, that will be the first thing. And Monday actually you will be able to join, you said half an hour late. So Monday definitely the entire team is participating, and after starting Tuesday I will try to schedule between 11 and 12. Most of the time you are available at that time. So, and I will update you. Yeah. Okay. Okay, that will be great. Yeah. You see, you will be joining, right? 3 to 4:30. That will be. Yeah, that will be great. Yeah. Yeah, I will be working on that. Yeah, there are a lot of good quite a bit. Okay. There's a lot of movement here, so it is noisy. So I have to be just. Yes, sure. So when the earlier discussions were going on between client and the discussions on SOW, so client was insisting that SMA will help us out during the initial phase of 3 to 5 weeks, and those discussions had concluded in a way like there should be some SMA in the first sprint time or second sprint time, that is again between the first 3 4 weeks, 5 weeks of the entire project, and then whenever required the SMAs can be called and they can try to see. So Rupak arranged for Naomi and Stephen in the first week, second week Naomi was there, so things were fine. But now starting 25th, the main things are getting launched on 25th, and planning sessions and all these things happening during that week. Dev team is yet not connected with the client yet. The client and dev team will get connected on 25th, and after that the sessions will start for understanding the projects and technical aspect and design aspects and infrastructure aspects. So during those meetings, initial meetings, when all refinements will start, some SMA presence is required. That was the entire purpose of having SMAs, and as per the communications during SOW. And there are some stakeholders who have communicated that Josh should be there because your name was mentioned earlier. So I think those kind of things. I'm not having much clarity, but I do know that some stakeholders have mentioned that Josh should be part of SMA because he has a good technical background, very strong technical background, and all those stuff. Yeah. Yes, yes. The reason for that, Josh, is I'm waiting for Leslie's confirmation. If Leslie is saying that some 11 to 12 I cannot make it and we cannot do it and this and that, so it will be of no gain to schedule. Or just I can do one thing. I can put on your calendar the timings which we have decided, and if something doesn't go right, we can just cancel it. Will that work? Sure. Sure, I got it, sir. Sure, I will do it right now in like some time. Yep. Yeah. Two projects they will be focusing on. They will be focusing on one project related to portal and another project which is related to triggering and some. They have a database called data lake. So some processes are to be triggered that automatically. They are doing it manually right now. So that's another project. So I think they named it as 397 and 406. So these are the two ones they will be initiating first, and other requirements are not much ready. These requirements they've been working since last 3 to 5 months, so they have something to get started here. Yep. Yeah. That's my view again, Josh. Because Leslie, this is our second week here, and this whole week Leslie was on spring break. So I heard that once she comes, she will be deciding what exactly the FPL team is looking forward to go ahead with. So tentative things are there. Still, they have not named it like, but I am looking. All the conversations here are on 406 and 397. So assuming that they will pull these two projects first, but Monday will be the day when we can get more clarity in team agreements, and we can have all our questions answered, and we'll have the dev team get introduced. So I think Monday team agreements meeting, we once we all are there, you are there, dev team is there, and some Manila team is also, the mobilization team is also joining. I have invited them too. So we will be like 9, 10 people in the meeting. We can have all questions answered how we are going forward. Yeah. Some of them, not all of them, but if something which you can also feel like we should have these things to be answered. The mobilization team have an entire kind of a deck where they want clarity from the client. So they were presenting. I will forward that to you. What exactly the mobilization team is going to do from Accenture point of view. So I'll forward that deck to you. That will help to get some idea of what's happening on Monday. Yeah. Yes, George, I will need your help and push because I'm new to Accenture and the methodologies are quite different from our different kind of work, directly working with the client. So, working with Accenture is a very good experience for me till now, and I want to make it the best out of it. So, this is my first project with some client going through Accenture. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. I have total. I just have total experience, 100% with project management and agile methodologies and all those stuffs. But from utilities domain, not much. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's 100% good. So only thing is, whenever some technical stuffs come up and dev team is needing help, I'm looking forward to use Steven and Naomi for that. Yeah. From capacity planning to sprint planning to product backlog refinements to release and deploying into the production, and all those things will work out good. Yeah. Um, I hope Naomi could have joined, but she is not. But main thing was this only, giving you an update on Steven and giving an update about the way the client is looking forward to us and the way things are here. So what I will do is, first thing first, I will schedule, book your calendar with a placeholder, and for the next week what we have agreed on the timings, and secondly, if you can please write me an email about some of the questions which are on top of your mind, and I will add some questions. And tomorrow morning I have dev team meetings and ask them also. They can come up with questions related to technical aspect of what they do, and bring all questions together and keep ready for Monday meetings. Yeah. Yep, I will do that. Rupak, I just had a conversation with him an hour back. Yes, I'm I'm in conversation with Rupak directly, not with Ed. Yeah. So regarding what, anything specific you were trying to ask? Yeah, yeah, that should be great. Yeah. Yes, sure. So I will check Nomi's calendar and schedule if require. If Nomi is there, then we can just schedule one, or we'll email you or ping you with details if anything is there. Thanks, Josh. Thank you very much. Yeah. Bye now. Yeah.